Hello, friends, and welcome to another summary podcast of Ellen White's book, The Great Controversy. Today, we will talk about the Bible and the French Revolution. The papacy and the French Revolution wanted to exterminate the Bible and its followers, but the Word of God remains forever. For centuries, France had been rejecting the light of truth that God insisted on bringing to them through the reformers. This systematic and radical rejection of the truth had as a consequence a fruit that the whole world could feel. In a country where the papacy had succeeded in hiding the Bible, it was natural that sooner or later the scenes that characterized the revolution would develop. Ellen White refers to the apocalyptic prophecy which cautioned of precisely what happened in France. Revelation also states that the beast from the abyss would make war on the two witnesses, identified as the Old and New Testament. In no other country like revolutionary France was the spirit of enmity against Christ more impressively developed. Huguenots and Albigenses, two Christian religious groups in France, were massacred continuously for centuries. Mention is made of the St. Bartholomew's massacre, and Ellen White comments, "The world still shudders with horror as it recalls the scenes of that butchery, the vilest and most vicious on record. Thousands of Protestants were dragged from their homes and murdered in cold blood. This massacre lasted 7 days, and from Rome, the events in France were perceived with rejoicing, declaring that day so full of happiness and joy, when the Most Holy Father received the news and went in solemn procession to give thanks to God and to St. Louis." Little did the pontiff know what was about to come to the Catholic religious in France. The beast and the abyss, or atheistic power, ruled France during the Revolution and the Reign of Terror. The worship of God was abolished by the National Assembly. Bibles were publicly burned, and everything to do with the Christian faith was mocked. All religious worship was forbidden, and the goddess Reason was exalted as the only worthy of worship. Papism, says Ellen White, had begun the work that atheism was responsible for concluding. The spirit of freedom accompanies the Bible, but from Rome, it had been insisted on poisoning the minds of the kings against the Reformation. Ignorance, vice, and superstition were valued above Christian values. The greed and licentiousness of the nobles, the abuse of the working classes, and the hatred of the lower classes for the upper classes turned France into a bomb waiting to explode. The French people directed their hatred towards Romanism and the priesthood, considering them accomplices of their oppression. They had distorted God, and now the French people not only rejected the idea of God that had been presented to them for centuries, but they rejected outright the Church of God. The oppressed became the oppressors, and where in the past bonfires had been raised to put an end to the lives of the reformers, now guillotines were raised to put an end to the lives of the king, the clergy, and the nobles. In barely 10 days, thousands of people died. Ellen White states, "When one disguise of error has been discovered, Satan gives another, and the people greet it with the same enthusiasm with which they welcomed the former. When the people discovered that Romanism was a deception, and he, Satan, could no longer by that means get the law of God violated, he then chose to make them believe that all religions were deceptive and the Bible a fable. And casting away the divine statutes, they gave themselves up to uncontrolled iniquity. Such is the enemy, calculating and strategic, but God is more powerful than he is." Satan wanted to eliminate the Word of God, but the Bible stands forever. So, we can read it in the last words of the chapter when Ellen White writes about the unbeliever Voltaire, a French writer, historian, and philosopher who once arrogantly said, "I'm tired of hearing continually that 12 men established the Christian religion. I must prove that one man is sufficient to destroy it." Several generations have passed since Voltaire died, and millions of men have seconded his work of propaganda against the Bible. But far from exhausting the circulation of the precious book, where there were 100 copies in Voltaire's time, there are 10,000 today. not to say 100,000. Dear friends, the Word of God will remain forever because it is not only a book, it is the revelation of His will for those who want to accept it, value it, and above all, apply it to their lives.